In 1910, in southern Fairfax, Virginia, work began on a prison that would come to be known as the Lorton Reformatory. The idea was to build a facility on a 1,155-acre tract of land north of the Occoquan River that would house inmates from the neighboring District of Columbia. That's my hometown. And the prison would be operated by the D.C. Department of Corrections. And the reason for this new prison, just outside of Washington, was that a few years earlier, in 1908, a special penal commission appointed by President Theodore Roosevelt found that the conditions at the D.C. jail and workhouse were deplorable. So the United States Congress acted to have this new facility built to usher in a change of philosophy and treatment of prisoners in Washington. So in 1916, the Lorton Reformatory opened its doors to inmates. Now, those of us Washington locals refer to the prison as simply Lorton, Lorton, Lorton. But the true and legal name of the facility is the D.C. Workhouse and Reformatory. The D.C. Workhouse and Reformatory. And because it was situated in Lorton, Virginia, the facility was referred to as the Lorton Reformatory. But again, I want to underscore here that the framers and the architects and the urban planners, the politicians, they named the project the D.C. Workhouse and Reformatory. My father has 5 brothers, and of these 5 paternal uncles, one has been a lifelong drug addict. And as a result of his decades-long substance abuse, he has spent a great many of his 65 years on the planet as an inmate, incarcerated in somebody's prison somewhere, jailed. And in the 1970s, this same uncle was imprisoned at Lorton. He was an inmate at the D.C. Workhouse and Reformatory. Now, back in the day, the quote-unquote work on the new workhouse, the one being built in Lorton, was done by the prisoners who were already housed in the D.C. jail. They were the laborers for this new prison. They built the symmetrical brick dormitory complexes that would eventually become their cells, using bricks manufactured at the on-site kiln, K-I-L-N, kiln complex. Those inmates crafted their own cages. And until 1997, that is where Washington, D.C. would send its convicted criminals to Lorton. And my uncle was one of them. I remember my father's mother on more than one occasion making the drive down to Washington from her home in Pittsburgh to visit her son, my uncle, at Lorton. I remember my father driving her down to the jail, and I especially remember the excruciatingly agonizing and desperate look on my grandmother's face when she returned from seeing her caged son. In 1911, the Lorton and Occoquan Railroad began operating, a 7-mile line running between the D.C. Workhouse and Reformatory and the wharf at Occoquan, Virginia. This became known as the L&O Railroad, and it was created to, check this out, it was created to transport prisoners throughout neighboring counties and cities across the state of Virginia. A whole railroad was created to transport prisoners throughout neighboring counties and cities across the state of Virginia, and to move inmates throughout the entire Lorton complex, from the workhouse to the brickyard, and from the brickyard to other prison industry facilities located on the site. And until it was decommissioned in 1977, the L&O Railroad also used inmates to haul coal, transport finished brick out of the prison, and to even carry sewage away from the facility. Caged people, controlled in herds, and corralled into productive, quote-unquote, useful criminals. Back-breaking work for pennies on the hour, or, and this was mostly the case, for absolutely no pay at all. And this cheap, free labor made the local and regional economy go round. It was their cheap, free labor, all those bent backs, that made the local and regional economy go round. This is not a new story, brothers and sisters, particularly for African Americans in this country. The last prisoners hauled their final load of cargo and said goodbye to their cages at the D.C. Workhouse and Reformatory in 2001 when the prison closed its doors. In 1978, I had been on the planet for 12 years. And on November 2nd of that year, 1978, I remember watching a documentary on television called Scared Straight. And Scared Straight was filmed at Rahway State Prison in New Jersey. Some of y'all remember this. And in the film, a group of juvenile delinquents spent 3 hours with some of the prison's roughest and toughest lifers. Guys who were never getting out. And during those 3 hours, the lifers literally tried to scare the shit out of those teenagers. Their goal was to scare them straight, to give them such a rough ride that they would never again want to step foot inside another prison. Scared Straight was a televised diversion program aimed at changing the trajectory of the lives of that group of young thugs, yes, and by extension to shift the course of criminal activity by all the juvenile delinquents who would be watching at home on television. The hope was to get America's errant youth on the right side of the law by providing them with an authentic prison experience with real prisoners interacting with delinquent youth who were potentially on the road to incarceration themselves. And in 1978, Scared Straight, that documentary was cutting edge television. And as a 12-year-old watching at home myself, I must tell you it worked, because I was literally scared straight. Those images, that experience seared into my soul in a way that made me never, ever want to become incarcerated.